Well, welcome everybody. This is the NAMI Finger Lakes Family Forum, and we're welcoming Tammy Baker, a community outreach worker with Family and Children's Services. Is that correct, Tammy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
To share with us tonight what her service is about and to talk about how that impacts our community. So welcome, Tammy. Thank you for being here. Would you want to introduce yourself and your work to us?
Sure. I'd love to hear everybody's name here so I know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this or that. I would love to hear that, and then I would totally go into what I do and who I am.
Great.
Carol Booth, Tammy. We've
Hi,
met
Carol.
at Family Forum in reality, in the real world.
Yes, we did. We did.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm Jean Pohl and Tammy. I'm a NAMI member.
I'm Deb Grantham. I'm the current president of NAMI Finger Lakes.
And Rich is coming too. Okay.
Yep. And I'm Beth McGee. I'm the executive director of NAMI Finger Lakes.
Great, thanks. So hi everybody. So I know Rich, so when he gets on, he doesn't have to introduce himself. So Tammy Baker, I've been doing, I kind of call it street outreach. It's a community outreach program, but a lot of organizations have community outreach people, but it's very different from what I do. So the program started in July 2015. It's funded through the city, the county, Downtown Ithaca Alliance, and Cayuga Medical did put some money in it in the beginning, and they're not anymore, and they should, and I'll talk a little bit more about why it's their important role. So some of you may know the background, but how it started was the city put $15 million into the Commons project. So there was this concern about what are we going to do with those people that hang out there. So the city, the county got together and they created this program, which is based out of Burlington, Vermont, which also has a street outreach program that's been up there for like 13 years. They have like a 5-block commons, so we have a 2-block commons. So when I interviewed for the job, I was like everybody should be welcome here. Like we can't, so my intention was to make everybody welcome. So that's how the program sort of started. What are we going to do with those people? It sounded like the human service providers were like, they were offended by it because these are our people. So basically the intention of the program is to help people get connected to services, to be available for people that are in distress, to deal with non-emergency police calls, and then once people are connected, how to help them stay connected, reminding them of their appointments. So it's evolved. In the beginning, when I was working with agencies, there was a lot of resistance. And so now I'm happy to say that I have built a real collaboration with pretty much every service agency in town. So I'm going to pause there for a minute. So part of the Downtown Ithaca Alliance's buy-in is I work with all the businesses downtown. So if they see somebody, whether somebody's intoxicated or presenting with maybe mental health or panhandling, they'll call me. So I usually go interact with somebody. Prior to pre-COVID, I would just take them someplace and buy them coffee, get them something to eat. And that's a nice soft opening with anybody that you're trying to meet. So at this point, so basically the intention of the program is to connect people with services and remind them of their appointments, work really closely with the court system. So a lot of times folks are, minor violations, but they get violations. So reminding them of their court appointments, working with the attorneys. A lot of people are homeless, so work really closely with DSS. And one of the things I found after I started doing the job is when somebody gets housed, housing is in a checkbox. Because some of the folks that get housed, they need extra supports. But if they move through the system, they get housed and like, okay, great, next. So the program's really expanded. Now I'm working with a lot of property managers to say, hey, Carol just got housed. I really want her to stay housed. So if you have any problems, let me know. And so I work closely with property managers at this point. And I say So a year ago, August last year, we hired a new person. So now there's 2 of us, which is really great. So there's Natalia Kowalik will join us if it's still continuing around 8 o'clock. So there's 2 community outreach workers at this point. So we help facilitate people getting housed. We help try to keep them housed. We work closely with Ithaca Police Department in terms of some people don't know who to call, so they'll call us, and then we just manage the situation. Some people, if we need to call IPD, we do. Some people call IPD, so we both show up together. Then we decide who's going to manage what. Sometimes IPD is called and we're not, and they'll call us and say, hey, I think this is more of a social work sort of gig. Can you come over? So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. Probably 3 years ago, I worked with, there's probably 5 different agencies working together. We started going out to the jungle because what I wanted to do is know the people who are staying in the encampments, because they're also coming into town. And if I didn't know who they were, then I wouldn't be able to engage with them. So we started an outreach program, going out there, helping them get on Section 8 list, helping them get connected to DSS. So when they came into town, we could say, hey, did you follow up with this or that? So we would know who they are. So we've been going out, pre-COVID, we were going out twice a month. Since COVID, actually, we created, called it an enhanced outreach team for the jungle. We got porta potties out there. Reach Medical got on board so people could get behavioral health support and just doctor support through Reach Medical. So that was a nice benefit of COVID because Reach had not been part of the team prior to that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. So I'm going to leave it there to see if people have questions.
What are the other agencies that were part of that team when you started going to the jungle?
It was Tompkins Community Action.
Okay.
Adult Protective Service. Adult Protective Service has one person that's besides doing his other job, he's also assigned to do homeless outreach. Mm-hmm. So and the shelter. So the homeless shelter, which is St. John's Community Shelter. So now we also have Salvation Army has a specific homeless outreach person. So we work really closely with Stephen, really great guy. And also we got staff involved, Southern Tier AIDS Project, because addiction's a really big thing. It's like trimorbidity, right? It's mental health, substance use, and homelessness, or housing insecurity. So it's all these things together. So staff has been going out, which is really helpful because they would bring out the sharps containers. And what was really interesting when staff got involved, because I've been going out for a couple of years, they didn't know me in that role, but when staff came out, they say, oh, we have a container full of needles. So they would do this exchange, and then staff could connect with them on the level of their addiction that we couldn't necessarily do because we didn't have that relationship. Mm-hmm. So I work really hard to try to get a really well-rounded outreach team, especially going out to the jungle, but in town, we just have Natalia and I.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
The county proposed budget eliminates the county share of funding from your program. Would you talk a bit about the entities that do fund the program or have funded it? You also mentioned one that isn't right now, and that you might elaborate on that a bit, and what the benefits are to these organizations or entities or businesses from your service, and then maybe a little bit about what the impact would be about not having county funding.
So it's the county, Downtown Ithaca Alliance, and the city are the major funders. We've got a couple little extra grants, community, the Cuba Medical Center helped for a little while. So I'm going to pause on that, why they're a really good partner, because a lot of the folks we work with go up to the hospital and they get discharged. They're homeless or they have no support system. Nobody else has access to their discharge plan to help them follow through. So I guess it was January of 2019 that I set up a meeting similar to the people that I talked about. We go out to the jungle, but we set it up at the hospital, met with the social workers, met with the discharge planners, just to talk about if somebody comes up to the hospital, find out if they're connected to any of these resources, so that they can sign a release and we can help them follow through with a discharge plan once they get released. For an example, when a lot of people go up to the hospital, if they're homeless, the hospital automatically sends them to the shelter. You have to be approved by DSS in order to stay at the shelter. So it's not a appropriate transfer, because especially if they're full, but again, they have to be approved. So it was really helpful clarification for all parties about what role we each play and how to work together. So that's been really great. The hospital continues to call me to say, hey, I'm working with so-and-so. They live in the jungle or they're homeless. And so what I do is help them get connected. It's like, oh, that person's actually has a health home care manager. Let me give you that person's name. So I feel like I'm kind of a weaver of different agencies. So the county, so it's not in their recommended budget. I honestly think it's going to be in their add-on, their over target, which there's a few organizations that are in their over target. The legislature does not vote on that until starting October 14th. I'd be really surprised if it doesn't get put back in. If it doesn't, then the program's going to fold.
Really?
Going to fold because it's not, family and children can't take that on. Everybody's and they're in a budget constraint, right? There's budget constraints all across the county. But if the county does not, if they can't come up with that $60,000, the program won't continue. It's just, and Downtown Ithaca Alliance and the city of Ithaca, they're 200% behind the program. So we work really closely with a lot of county funded agencies. We remind people of their appointments. We walk people over to their appointments. We do the telehealth with people over the phone. So I'm a little curious of what the no-show rate was before the program started in 2015 versus what it is now, since we help people get to their appointments. I understand everybody wants a piece of the pie, but what part of the pie works better together? It's a lot of different conversations around funding stuff.
And did they develop those metrics at the time that they implemented your program? Did they determine to do that?
No, they didn't do that at all, Beth. They didn't do that at all. Okay. So, and what I'm looking at, I collect, so my data, our data is, I look at every individual we work with, what was the referral source. So if NAMI called me about somebody, I would track it as NAMI, any agency that calls. So that's going up more and more and more, meaning other agencies, county funded agencies are calling us to help access their people because they can't find them. Probation, parole, DSS. So we work really closely with those entities. So I honestly think that when we really look at the data, I would be really surprised if they didn't come through with the funding. But it's going to be worth a letter writing campaign, just to remind people of the important work we do.
Sure. And so I think I first learned of your work when NAMI Finger Lakes was facilitating conversations at family forums to inspire a mental health court in the area. Oh, right, and I remember you coming to that or to those. And once I learned of your work and what you were doing in the community, I was really impressed with that and thought that that would be a really great complement to a mental health court in the area. So now that the wellness court is established and it's been in place for over a year or about a year or more now, how do you or how can you complement that great community service, the wellness court? Do you work with them at all with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I work with clients from drug court and wellness court. So again, my role is mostly to help remind people to go and to show up. And now it's about calling in. So it's a similar service that I offer with any other program. It's just reminding people that they're supposed to be connected. What's really helpful is having that team. So if I know what's going on, so if I see you, Beth, in the community, it's like, oh, you have wellness court today. Did you call? It's like, oh no, I got a call. It's like, yep, we got a call. So that reminder for people, I don't think they intentionally blow things off. It's just, it's, if you're homeless or have mental health and substance use, like going to wellness court or your court appointment or drug court or any appointment, it's not in the forefront of your mind. So having people out in the community to help remind people of what they're supposed to do is really helpful. So I work with Michelle really closely, who oversees who's the case coordinator, I guess, in
Right.
the wellness court.
Right.
Great. That really is an essential service. We do know that things like just everyday keeping track of appointments for people that are living
Yes.
with a mental health condition is really challenging, or can be really challenging.
Mhm.
So having someone in the community that cares about them, that knows them, that takes the time to know them is really is an essential service.
And I have a bunch
And
of calendars.
Oh,
I do. I bought a bunch of calendars that I give to people because people like that.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like being able to write it down. It gives them a sense of purpose and like, oh, right, I have these appointments. So that's really helpful. Some people don't want them, but some people it really makes a difference being able to write their appointments down.
Sure. And so I think that one of the things that's mentioned on your website about your service is de-escalation of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that and what that means in the community and how you accomplish that?
Sure. It just happened earlier today. For example, you probably all know Magic Man.
yes.
In the comments, yes. So somebody, I was on the comments and he had this other person who actually presents with mental health, has his little speaker saying, it was something like, hey ho, Magic Man has got to go. But he was blaring it, walking around Magic Man. So I just happened to be there at that time. And so I was able to just pull that guy to the side and just talk to him about, just that's not helpful. I know that you're frustrated with him, but kind of attacking him or threatening him is not helpful. So we just had this whole conversation. And anyway, so that's like a very recent example. But I get calls a lot from, it's mostly people probably intoxicated or mental health or homelessness. Really, it's a combination. And escort them off the commons. Alphabet Soup called me the other day. Somebody was on the commons, she was throwing up. She was very sick. So I happen to know her. So I like, hey, let's go this way. So do you want some tea? So figuring out what to do, but getting them out of the public eye and sitting with people and then regrouping to figure out what to do. And again, some people, at this point, most of the people I work with, I know who they're connected with. So sometimes if it's somebody that's really acting out, I usually try to find their service provider, or I'll call Thompson County Mental Health and say, hey, I have so-and-so here. This is what's happening. What do you recommend? Like, is there a provider available to talk to them? So I do a lot of that kind of stuff in the streets as well. Like somebody I find out like, oh, if they haven't had their shot, actually, can you get them over here because we haven't been able to find them and they're late on their shot. So that's one of a de-escalation I'll do. I'll help bring somebody over there.
So how much do you work with the emergency outreach from mental health? Do you call them? Do they call you, or the mobile crisis team?
Yeah.
They're probably at times when you're not working.
Yeah,
I don't know. How much interaction?
Well, I mean, I don't have the number on the top of my head, but we work with mobile crisis a lot. And during COVID, when it started, they weren't allowed to go out. Natalia and I were the only ones able to go out. So we dealt with that a lot. So again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, Carol, but I can send them to you guys if you're interested, how many times we reach out with mobile crisis. They'll call me and say, hey, Tammy, we're concerned about so-and-so. Let us know if you see them in the community. They're the ones that institute the 945s. And it was actually pretty disconcerting to Natalia and I that they weren't able to go out, because if a 945 is instituted and it's only the police that have to deal with it, if somebody refuses that, they're considered resisting arrest and they could handcuff them. That's not what you want to do with somebody that's in a mental health crisis.
It was
So-
very confusing when we found out that they were not able to go out. I didn't understand that. It seemed very confusing. I guess now the decision is that they can go out, but
They can go out. I've gone out with them recently a few different times. So yes.
I mean,
So-
to me, they're essential workers also. I mean, really.
Yeah,
I
that's a whole
get it.
different, I can't speak to that. That was a county decision. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Most people couldn't go out. So,
Sure.
but we work closely with them. We have a really good relationship. And what I do is like if maybe it's somebody I don't know well, but I'm noticing behavior that I'm concerned about and I find out the person's name, I'll call over there and I'll say, hey, this is what's happening in the street. Should I be concerned? You know, will they, do they need to go up? So we have a good relationship with them. It was quite disappointing that they weren't able to go out through the last few months.
Right.
I do find it interesting, though, that that they were not able to go out, but that your service was
Right.
essential enough to continue to go out. And I'm curious, were you provided with PPE?
Yep.
You
Yeah,
were?
we had
That's
all
great.
that. We created an enhanced outreach team, and so Reach actually came through and gave us a lot of gloves and masks. So we used that. We had that, and then we had enough that we handed them off to people
Great.
because that was really important. The people that are working with it, they would actually wear a mask as well.
So you think that was at the top county decision? I mean, who
I
made
can't.
that
I'm
decision?
not even going to dare to speak to that, Carol. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, it does seem odd that you were.
Well, I mean, Family and
Thank you.
Children's, in all honesty, they, street outreach is a new program, right? So we've never had a pandemic before. So probably at some time in the beginning, maybe the second week of April, they decided it wasn't safe for us to go out.
Hmm.
So Natalia and I were mad. We were really mad about that. So there was probably 2 weeks that we didn't go out at all. We did, because there was a construction site, there was a construction project happening in the jungle, the homeless encampment. I went out once a week just to help facilitate that, to make sure that people moved to where they were supposed to move so the construction could continue. And I say that these are the most resilient, resourceful people I know. A lot of people say, you can't move these homeless people. But what I say is these folks set up their encampments in the throes of their addiction. They didn't come out there and set up an encampment and decide, oh, I'm going to start using. They set it up and they move all the time out there. So I knew them moving, it would be like two houses down for us. They're just moving to another location. All the services are going to continue to be provided. So I continued to do that once a week. And then I broke my ankle having a really fun time with a dog. So I couldn't go out for a couple more weeks after that, unless then I had my boot. So Family and Children's, we didn't go out for a couple weeks, just because as they're regrouping and trying to understand the pandemic and wanting us to be safe. But yeah, so we have all the PPE stuff that we need, and we hand it out to clients.
Good.
Nice. I'm hearing you talk about businesses being able to call. I'm wondering a couple of things. So the benefit to businesses is that it essentially eliminates or gives them a solution to uncomfortable situations in front of their businesses on the commons in that downtown corridor. Is that why they're investing in you?
Yeah, they don't want to call the police. They don't want a big
Right.
scene. So there was a young man in Alphabet Soup, and he didn't want to wear his mask.
Mm.
He got really mad. He took it off and spit on the floor.
Mm.
So he presents with a bit of mental health stuff. So they said he couldn't come back. He came back the next day. And it was a little bit of a scene. So they called me. So I worked with him, found out who his worker is. And he really wanted a particular toy. So I was able to go in and get the toy he wanted. He paid me back. He had his toy, and explained to him why he couldn't go back. It didn't feel safe because he wasn't able to listen to the rules. I left the information to his counselor at TCMH, so they have that information. So that's like a recent thing with COVID. So most of the businesses, they're really respectful of people. They just don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. And is what is the share of investment that the other entities have as compared to what the county has? Just trying to gauge when you say that if you don't have that funding from the county, that the program would fold. What is the level of investment on behalf of the other?
Yeah, the city and the county is the same investment, and DIA is a little less. The Downtown Ithaca Alliance is a little bit less.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, the city and the county, I'm pretty sure it's the same. It's the same share, the same financial contribution.
So the Family and Children's is that funded by the county?
Well, I think we get some of our programs are funded by the county. It's mostly, it's therapy, so it's a lot of Medicaid reimbursement. They're basically hosting the program, so they pay for our benefits, but they're really just hosting the program and providing supervision. Our supervisor is a clinical social worker, so he helps us when we have issues out there, and he helps us work through that.
That's great.
Benefits are a big deal, though.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking, I don't do all the number stuff, but I think the benefits and everything is covered by the 3 different funders. So they're really hosting the program and providing supervision. And one of the things we got a couple grants recently to buy TOPS cards, and we have like $15 shortstop cards. We have gift cards for College Town Bagels and Waffle Frolics. We work with the Pay It Forward program. So we're able to go bring people into certain businesses to help them get food. It's just a nice way of connecting with people if you can sit down and talk and buy them a cup of coffee or a bagel.
What ways could NAMI help you in your service?
Well, just inviting me so I can share more about it and to see the breadth of how much what we do out there, working with so many different organizations and individuals, and even if individuals don't want to be connected to services because they've been traumatized, they have trauma they haven't dealt with, and then they're traumatized by the system, so they're not going to even seek services. So how to be with them in this calm, comfortable way until they feel comfortable enough to engage with services. So really understanding our program and talking about it. But in terms of what's happening right now, we are working on the development department at Family and Children's is working on a template. So what I could do is I could send it to you, Beth, or Rich. I'm not sure the Beth person. If you're the chair, I can send it to you, Beth. A template of what we're asking people to say to the county around why this program is important.
That would be great.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. So my guess is they know why they know the importance of it. I'm not sure why they chose not to put it in the budget. So I wish I had this is what you need to talk about. I'm not sure, because 2 years ago, it was a big push to continue the program and to get more funding. We had letters, actually the director of the library came, we had 3 other letters from the library. Somebody from assigned counsel came and spoke. A police officer came and spoke. We had an amazing letter from Judge Wallace and Judge Miller saying how essential this is to the community. It helps get people to the court. It helps people not to go to jail, because if you miss your court dates, there could be a warrant out. So I help facilitate that. So it saves the county money having these people in the streets helping people. So it's a little baffling why they chose not to put it in. I don't know. I mean, I know it's really tough right now. So they're having to cut lots of different things. But this just seems really essential because it's a connector to all these different other agencies. So what I'll do is once I get that template, I'll send it to Beth, and then you could maybe send it out to your people to say, hey, if this important program is important to you, you could send this letter.
Sure.
You could do it now if you want. I mean, some people have been sending letters. If you want to contact send a letter to the legislature, you could do that too. You don't have to wait for the template.
Right. Well, that's great. It would be very helpful. People do find it easier, I think, to have some sort of structure that they can follow and add their own comments to, and to inspire them to communicate that way. And we did share it. I did share it in our newsletter last week, and pointed pointed the budget out to people so they could take a
Okay.
look at it themselves and let people know that this is being considered as far as eliminating the funding. So yes, we are concerned about it and would like to spread this message, I think. So is anyone?
Even Tompkins
sorry.
County Mental Health is just like I feel like the agencies that we're really supporting, if you know people within certain agencies that benefit from this work, having people in agencies being able to write to and say, hey, this is why this is a beneficial program and we really need it to continue. That's helpful too, especially county funded agencies.
Sure. And I just want to be clear, this isn't part of the mental health or the public health budget. This is the county budget through the county administrator. So that
Right.
was made clear today in another presentation I was at. Does anyone else have any thoughts or questions that they want to share with Tammy?
Excuse me. I'd like to check with you, Tammy, about the data that you're keeping.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you can send that to Beth. Is it in a form that we could use as part of our letters?
You could. What I could do is send you our report. I could send you the quarterly report from well, the last year's, the last year's report, and then a recent report, which will be done probably in about sometime next week. So you could just look at the numbers. You may not. So what it shows you is individuals we serve.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we track encounters. So if I see Eugene 3 times in one day, I'm going to track that as one encounter.
Mm-hmm.
But if I get 3 different calls about you because you were a naughty monkey somewhere, and I get a call from Beth, I get a call from a different agency, I'm going to track that as 3 separate encounters, because what we're trying to see is how many agencies are actually aware of the program and calling us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we track basic needs. So did we provide you water, food, help with transportation? So we track that. We track if there was a community concern. So if a business or somebody calls me because they're concerned about somebody, we track that and we track the result. That's increased a little bit, but sometimes we can't find the person. So I get a call and we go out and we can't find them. So, but we still track it as a community concern and who calls us. So what I'll do is I'll send this off to you, Beth, I will send the 2019 report. Do you want that now, or do you want to wait until I get the second quarter report done for 2020?
Wouldn't that be okay, Jean?
Yeah, we
Okay.
could wait, I think.
Great. So,
Yeah, that'd
okay,
be
I'll
great.
send it. And then if you have questions on how to interpret the information, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Tammy, did the activity go up or change with the addition of the second cow, as we call it?
Yeah, I know. Isn't it funny?
Wendy?
And I love that we have a steering committee. So the intention of the second person was to level out, because I was doing beyond what one person should do.
Mhm.
So the intention was just to balance that out. But of course, if you have 2 people out there, you're going to work with more people. And so the encounters have gone up and we work with more people.
Great.
It didn't double, thank goodness, because that's not what we wanted.
That's not the goal, no.
That wasn't the goal. So there's definitely, we work with more people and there's more encounters. And we also track how many times, like we can look at, maybe we work with many people just one time. How many people do we work with 10 times or more? How many people do we work with? We work with them 5 times or more in one encounter. So we track all of this. Like the numbers I'm going to show you are some basic numbers, but I can go into the minutia and sort out anything.
Well, that should make data people happy, and that's what I think we've got running the county.
Right, but it's like I do that, and I'm out in the field, and so I'm doing it all. So I would love to have a data person, because it's you can get really, you can just swim into that and spend hours and hours, but then I'm not out doing other things.
And is that, you mentioned the providing food and essential needs for people. Is that part of this budget? Is that like a discretionary budget that you have, or is that, do you connect with other organizations and food services?
Yeah, no, that's something that Family and Children's covers. But we did get a grant through the emergency something food grant. So it's the ESFG grant. I can't remember what the acronym is for. So we got a grant last year for $1,000. We bought we bought a bunch of $25 gift cards for Tops, and we bought some gift card, like a $200 gift card for Waffle Frolic and College and Bagels, so just so we can take people in and get food.
Mm-hmm.
We were giving out the $25 gift cards. It says food only on it. But then I went to buy some water so I could pass out water because it was really hot this summer. And I just went through the self-checkout line. Like, oh, you can buy anything if you go through the self-checkout line. So we don't give out the $25 gift cards anymore. We take people shopping, or you tell me what you want and I'll go get it. We just really, we try to curb people's addiction as much as we can. I mean, we're pretty harm reductionists for the most part. Like, we have bags, we have people put their drinks in bags so they don't get a ticket, but we don't want to give out a gift card where they can go buy alcohol. So we have that, and we just got another grant through this program to have more. So and Shortstop is really great because they don't serve alcohol, so we can give a $15 gift card to somebody and they can get food. So yeah, so we did get a couple grants recently to help provide food and so that we can buy granola. So we'd like to have granola bars and water that we can just hand out to people when we're in the streets too.
And I imagine the Downtown Alliance, since they're investing in this, they must share that with their members. And so
Yes.
that's how they would know to call you. But how do other people know to call you? How do they know about you?
I don't know. So the Downtown Ithaca Alliance, so when I first started the program, I went to every downtown first floor business to find out what their concerns are and just introduce the program. I have been trying to do that again, and I can't quite get there because I get a call and I have to go someplace else. So that's important to be able to do that face-to-face with other businesses, because there's new businesses or there's new staff, so not everybody knows. So the Downtown Ithaca Alliance definitely advertises it in their newsletters, etc. And I think it's been around long enough. It's been 5 years. I don't know how people know. I get calls from people from outside of downtown Ithaca. Hey, I heard about you. I'm concerned about my neighbor. Or I have a business calling me outside of Ithaca saying I have an employee that's actually is lots going on with mental health stuff. I don't know where to turn. So I don't know how it's all spread, but it's out there for sure. Citizens will call me. I'll get a call about somebody. Hey, I heard that you're the person to call because I've seen this person over in this one corner that might need some help. So I personally don't advertise it, but I think it's just out there. It's just at this point.
Is it in that 211 list?
211, yeah. People call 211. I've definitely gotten probably last year, 2019, and then 2020. I get more calls from people have called 211, and then they have them call me.
I want to go back to the budget, the county budget. Maybe you answered this and I didn't get it, but if it's in the county administrator part of the budget, not the county mental health, who took it out? Was it the county administrator?
It is in the county administrator part, and I have no idea, Deb.
That is who prepares the budget. It could also be that the county administrator is fairly new, still within 2 or 3 years. So, and if we had pushed for funding over 2 years ago, and the implementation of the program was 5 years ago, it could well be that it just isn't known, personally enough, and what the impact is to necessarily understand, and sometimes in municipalities we'll remove things and then people show that they care about them by asking that they be put back in.
Mhm.
And also kind of like justifying a line, and seeing
Right, right.
why is this justified? How come we want to spend this money?
Well, that was
Personally, with this one, I don't feel comfortable with that, but
Well, that was kind of what I was getting at. If it's the county administrator that removed it, then that's an obvious point of contact, a person that we could really make a point of contacting. And if it's somebody else, then, we do the county administrator and the somebody else, but I guess we don't know specifically.
Yeah, it's not its own line item, so it is under the administrator's budget. So, but they also, they just cut the health home care program
Yes.
at Tompkins County Mental Health.
Yep.
And that's huge. That's gonna, I work with so many of those care managers, and so many of the people I work with are connected. It's like, we work, that's a really solid team. The care managers that I work with, whether it's the Southern Tier Care Coordination or the program at Tompkins County Mental Health,
Right.
that's a huge loss.
They've been trying to do that, to get rid of that for several years. When I was on the board, they were not in favor of keeping that. Sorry about my dog. I don't know if you can hear her. But yeah, that's been in jeopardy for a while, and it's really terrible.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. I'm just, yeah, because we need people to be able to go out to people's homes and help them out, and it's just, yeah, some of the workers there are amazing, and they have the Health Home Plus, which the other Southern Tier Care Coordination, I think, just applied for that, so hopefully they'll get that. But the Health Home Plus, working with the harder to serve population that that have a care manager, that's going to be a big missing for sure.
Have you heard if any of those? Oh,
go ahead, Carol.
I just was going to say, have you heard if any other agency in town might take that up, like meld it into the health department or something?
No, I haven't. I know that the Southern Tier Care Coordination did apply for a Health Home Plus. So I think they're probably going to get that, especially if the one at TCMH is going to be closed.
Mm-hmm. That is what the plan is they're expecting that another agency is going to pick that program up.
Right. And Titus Towers has their own health home program. I work with Life Plan. A few of my people have a Life Plan health home care manager. So I don't know if I don't know what they're going to do with that whole, I don't know much about the funding for the health home care program, the honey program that's at TCMH. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. It's just a loss. That's a huge loss.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, unfortunately, they have people that do that work. And so if that team is disbanded, they're not working, obviously, for the other agency and another agency. So people will have a difficult transition, I imagine, as they begin working with a different agency other than
Right.
Tompkins County Mental Health. So that will be something that'll have to be on people's radar.
And part of the outreach program, we're not supposed to be case managers. I think that's an important piece with the county, because they have a bunch of case managers. We don't need to hire more case managers. So we're not considered case managers. So what we do track is when we do case management. So if I'm working with somebody that's already connected to another agency, I consider that case management, only because I'm tracking, it's my way of tracking when I'm working with another agency with one particular individual. There are many people that we work with that aren't connected, and we end up doing case management because we are working with them, trying to help them get involved. But until they get involved, we don't call that case management, because we're not supposed to do case management. So I think that's something to think about. If you do, once I get the, again, I'll send you that template when Family and Children Service has that available, but that's something to keep in mind, not to talk about the outreach program as being case managers, because that's not our job. There's a lot of case managers out there in the, in whether it's a county funded position or alcohol and drug council or community or CARS. We don't do case management per se, but we do, of course, because. So is that a clear distinction, or do you need me to explain that differently?
No, I think that's clear. Does anybody else have questions about that or want Tammy to elaborate more about that specifically? So what are some things that you think are still missing that you'd like to be able to do if you had, say, the magic wand, that your program could provide?
I think so we all work really hard. I think one of the missing pieces is the relationship with the hospital, honestly. When people go up that maybe are in the throes of their addiction, it's often the underlying thing is mental health. And when they go to the hospital, they're going to be treated for their addiction and then released. And that becomes a missing for the person that it was an opportunity to have their, a behavioral health issue looked at. So I wish there was more of a collaboration between when people go up to the hospital so that their behavioral health can be treated. So I feel like, and I'm not sure how to address that, Beth, but it's like, that's one of the issues that we find, that people go up there and we think, yes, they're finally going to get the help. And next thing you know, they're back in the streets. It's like, wow, that was fast.
So they'll do an evaluation when they're there, but they don't consider mental health as a possible underlying condition while they're there. It seems strange that they wouldn't try to evaluate that.
It does seem really strange. Oh, is that your dog?
Yes,
Bigger than I thought. I mean, it looks.
No, she's not big, but she's.
Okay, it says okay.
She's in my lap.
So one of the things that, so what's nice about this program is I don't need a release. So I can provide collateral. If I'm seeing something in the street, Beth is acting a certain way that I'm concerned about, I may call your worker and say, hey, by the way, I'm noticing this. It could be fine, but this is what I've been noticing with Beth the last couple of days. So I can provide collateral information without a release. A lot of people can't do that. And I understand the HIPAA and being really careful about that. What I would like to see is more of a team approach. So there's a handful of the clients, the people that I work with, that we're on an email chain. So if something happens, I notify somebody. If something happens, they notify them, so that we're all on the same page. So we're efficient and we're really effective with what we do. So we're not duplicating services. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be able to see how organizations could work better with that way, so that I feel like it's going to benefit the individual. I hate to say the client because these are people, but it's going to benefit the person, and we're all on the same page. I feel like we all have a kid mentality. Oh, I'm going to ask mom. I'm going to ask dad. We know where we're going to get away. What we can get away with. And I think it's the same concept when an individual has different service providers. I'm going to get that from Beth. Oh, I'm not going to ask Carol because she's going to say no. So we play each other. So I would love to see more of a team approach when somebody is connected to multiple service providers, even if the outreach person isn't engaged. I would just like to see more of a team when one person finding out. So if I'm working with Beth, like, oh, you're connected to these other 3 people. How do we work together? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a little bit of a missing.
That's kind of the model that the court coordinator for Wellness Court works.
Yes.
So to have that just as a community service for anyone who is part of this vulnerable population that comes under your purview. Mm-hmm. That does sound like it would be a really excellent way to coordinate and like you said, make sure you're not duplicating services, and that things aren't falling through the cracks because maybe someone doesn't know that one particular provider might be able to do this for them, mm-hmm. And they just haven't accessed that or don't know about it. And to have one person like Michelle, to kind of be able to know what is missing from this, person's life, or what's not happening here and what do they need. That sounds like a great idea.
And I know people can't do this either, but it's to have like a general database, because if people are looking for housing or, so I can just look and say, oh, Tammy, oh, yep, she has a Section 8 application on file. Oh, yep, she has an Ithaca Housing Section 8 application on file. but without knowing that people are filling out forms again and again and again, and it's invasive. It feels really invasive. So some people don't want to do that. So I spend a bit of time, if I just meet you, Beth, and your housing is an issue for you, I'm going to call these agencies to find out if they already have applications on file or where you're at, rather than just filling them out. So so people fill out a lot of paperwork. I would love to have that just streamlined a little bit better, especially with DSS. If people are trying to get services, if you don't follow through in a certain period of time, and then 30 days has passed, you got to start all over again.
Right. And that's very challenging for people living with mental health conditions.
Really challenging, yes.
Or parents. I have a parent in my family who is just having to deal with court situations or school situations and utilizing different services. And so a whole day can be spent going from one organization to another, filling out paperwork, and that's very difficult when you're a single parent, you have children who have to be in school, and you're dealing with the COVID situation and already trying to figure out how you're going to manage this, educating your child. So there's so much that goes into that. And it seems like so much bureaucracy. It would be great if there was just a hub where someone could go fill out this paperwork. I'm going to need services. I'm probably going to need a lot of them. So then, what is the word I'm looking for? Not like a marketplace of that information, but like a clearinghouse, sort of like one place where they go.
One-stop shopping. Yes.
Yeah. So if they need WIC, the same application can be used for that, and just have it be an all-encompassing application. But the challenge is for a person with, like you said, I mean, just making an appointment is challenging enough, keeping one date, but and sometimes they have a difficult time, especially if they're homeless, keeping track of documents. They don't have a place to put them. They might have no ID, just so many difficulties and impediments to getting services. So the paperwork certainly would be a great relief if they could.
Yes. And then, a place where people could store their stuff too. It'd be great to have a file, anyway, there's
locker.
So many. People that, they use the shelter as their address, 618 West State Street, that's a business. So when I was doing this job and somebody would get housed, it's great. We would put a change of address for the shelter, but you actually have to put a change of address for every place you get mail. Because that's a business, so that doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? That means that anything that from the St. John's Community Center, that would get sent to your new address, but not all the other mail. So you have to remember, so where do you get mail from? So there's so many little details that I work with people and helping them get. Once you get, okay, we put this application, they want to house you. You need a birth certificate, the ID, and all of that. So helping people get all that. Helped a lot of people get their stimulus checks as well.
And so how did that work? Because people don't have, I think they distributed first to people with direct deposit or who had used direct deposit before. And then how do you send a check to a person who doesn't have a home?
It just goes to the shelter if they use that address. But what I didn't know is that if you have back child support, that check would just go to the child support, which that's not a bad thing, but it's
sure. I mean, someone's going to benefit from that.
Somebody's going to benefit. So I get checks. I help people cash checks, help them set up an account at the credit union, or they would sign it over to me and I would cash it and then just give them the cash. That always made me really nervous, just because people, I mean, that's a lot of money for people. All of a sudden you get $1,200. It's I was very nervous about that. But what I would do with people, actually, I would ask them, what would you do with $1,200? So we'd make the lists, I'd put it in their files. When we get the check, oh, hey, you wanted to get this, this, and this. They get to choose what they do, but I feel like it would be amiss if I didn't ask them what they wanted to do once they got, before they get the money, so they could think about it.
And how did you feel about how that went? Did you feel like people were able to follow through for the most part? Do you think that was really challenging for people?
Yep. I think people were pretty good about it. Some people, they didn't spend it really well. People stole it from other people because they found out they got their check. But it created a sense of empowerment for them, which is really important because not a lot of people the people I work with feel a sense of being empowered. So it did give them a sense of empowerment, even if they didn't spend it. However they spent it. I can't say that they didn't spend it wisely because that's what worked for them.
Well, I think it's much more expensive for people to be poor. So $1,200 doesn't necessarily go that far when
Right.
you're living in poverty, when you're homeless. I mean, the tax on poverty is pretty high as far
Yes.
as
Yes.
how hard it is to live. So
So any other questions for me?
Sounds like you're doing an incredibly comprehensive job.
Mhm.
And I think you can call yourself a coordinator. If you can't be a case manager, you're certainly coordinating everything in town.
I like the weaver. That's what I was saying. The weaver, like I'm weaving all these
Mhm.
things together, and it's a lot to do that. Take care of the data and connect with people in the streets. 'Cause
yeah.
so much. Like I got a picture from somebody, some business downtown because, well, with COVID, what's happening? There's no bathrooms.
Right.
So people can't go to the bathrooms. So it's a public health thing. So there's way more public urination and feces. It's just there's a lot of that going on. And so somebody had wrote, what did they wrote? If something happens to me, call this number, and they sign part of a name. It's like, oh, I think I knew who that might be. So I called the number, and it was this guy's ex-girlfriend. And she's like, I want him to come back. I don't want him putting my name around my number around town, but I want him to come back as long as if he can get his alcohol under control. And I said, well, if he, it sounds like she has some kids. So I was like, is it safe? If he came back, is it safe? Would you feel safe? Yeah. She said, there's no domestic violence. I don't want him to be drinking as much. So I found him today and I said, hey, probably, you're writing your ex-girlfriend's name. And so, just don't do that. And anyway, so that's kind of fun. Like that, this, like disconnecting people and letting them know that they're seen. So like, probably not a good thing to be writing her number other places.
Right.
He said, well, I want her to know, like, if something happens to me. It's like, I have her number. Now I have it in my phone. If something happens to you, I'll let her know.
Well, this really sounds like terrific work. And we hear about you and see you in so many places. And when we learned about the potential of this not being funded, it was quite upsetting. So we were really, really relieved to be able to have you so quickly, and that our family forum was coming up so you could share this information. I am recording this, so we will be able to share it on YouTube, and we will share it in all of our social places as well, social networking. And I'll send you the link to it as well if you'd like to share it.
So one thing I'd love to see is like, I would love, and I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. I would love to see a peer program. Just more, and not, I mean, to train peers, but then to actually give them a stipend, not just to volunteer their time. I think that would be really beneficial in terms of, connecting with people that really understand, whether it's the mental health, whether it's the substance use, but being able to connect peer to peer. I would love to see more. I would love to build that sort of a team as part of the street outreach. So I just don't have the bandwidth for that, but I would love to see that included into the program.
Sure. Mental Health Association is really terrific at bringing peers together. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that almost everyone, if not everyone, who works with Mental Health Association in Tompkins County, which is a separate entity from, I just always like to designate from Tompkins County Mental Health Clinic. But they are peers, that they have a diagnosis, and so they really do have the lived experience to help encourage other people to work like that and learn that skill and to share in the community and advocate. So I do know that I just heard today from them, I think Josephine, it's Josephine, right? That they are working to bring to, because we don't even know, the training is, anybody can do that, can get the training to be a peer advocate. So So we don't necessarily know who all in the community has that training. So I do think that they're trying to network and locate as many people as possible who already have that training and kind of bring them together. So you may want to reach out to them about that.
Well, that's
I
a
do know
missing with the
there's-
Jenkins Center too.
Yeah.
That's such a missing, because I would bring folks over there all the time. So that's a huge missing.
Yeah, for sure.
But they still have the peers, you're saying. So reaching out. So I'll reach out to Josephine. Thanks for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And, just kind of you have experience and on the ground information that could be really helpful, I think, to them. That you may even know people that would be ideal for that. So if there were people that wanted, say if there was an organization that wanted to sponsor that training for people. And one concern that I always have about that is the more people that we employ as peers, making sure that their work is valued and not exploited, that they're not lower paid individuals and organizations, I think is really, really important too. But having people be in places where decisions are made and their life experience is used to inform other people is really really important. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. This has to feel really valued. They have to feel valued and being part of the process and all different levels. Yes.
Yes. So do we have any further questions for Tammy?
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay, nice to see you all. Thank you so much for having me. And I will send the quarterly report to you.
That's great.
And I also
That'd be
send
great.
the template so you have that.
Yep.
That's great. And do you have any last comments that you want to make before we
No,
break?
thanks for the support. That means a lot. I know that it's really good work. I believe in the work, and I know Natalia really believes in the work. So it's nice to feel the community support.
Good.
Great.
Well,
Well, thank
you.
you so much for all the work that you're doing.
And
It's
thank
really
Natalia
noticed.
for us too.
Yeah.
Okay, will do. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Have a good
Thank
rest of
you.
your evening.
Great.
Okay.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.